Today we've got several guest speakers today, the first of which is Mr Nick Griffin MEP, and I have to say that out there today was quite interesting, wasn't it? Because I can't recall ever seeing policemen pushing any other MEPs or MPs for that matter, and I think that that was an absolute outrage what happened there. Pushing an elected member of the European Parliament into the road and across the road. Absolutely disgraceful. And they call us the fascists. That's the irony, isn't it? It's absolutely pathetic. But anyway, Nick is here. He has to go down to London. He's got the fundraiser down in London. So he's up first. And I'll hand you over to Mr Griffin, MEP. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, it's outrageous. It's outrageous that I'm pushed, not because I'm an MEP. It's an outrageous that you're pushed. It's an outrageous that any Brit is pushed off the streets of our own country when we are demonstrating. Because, as you know, we were demonstrating peacefully, responsibly. We weren't obstructing anybody. And generations of our people have fought and literally died for freedom. And the freedom to demonstrate isn't the freedom to demonstrate on the edge of the bloody sea, where no one else can see you or hear you. Freedom is the freedom to demonstrate. Freedom of speech is to say things people don't necessarily want to hear. It's the freedom to demonstrate where it's effective, with the people, talking to people, not shoved away in a little corner somewhere. So it's not the fact I was being pushed that's outrageous. It's the fact that every single person here was either directly or as part of that crowd being pushed. That's what's wrong, and that's what we've got to fight against. Now, we know, of course, that this case, and most of the grooming in the northwest of England, most of the grooming throughout this country, is an Islamist problem. It's connected with the Quran, and particularly the Muslims that we've got in this country, huge numbers of them, are influenced by this really harsh, crude Saudi Arabian way, which strips off. When Islam came into contact with other civilizations, in some places it developed itself and it had a reformation. But the Islam we've got in this country is dominated by people who go right back to basics. All that Saudi Arabian money, millions, billions of pounds being poured into radicalising the Muslim community. And all over Britain, but particularly in the northwest of England, our communities, poor white working class communities that no one gives a toss about, are forced to live cheek by jowl with this primitive medievalist version of this religion. It's absolutely wicked. You know that. And that's what the murder of Charlene Downes was about, and that's what we're here for. But let's step back a bit and understand this, and you've seen it today, that our problem isn't just with Islam. Now, I know that the Tommy Robinson version of the EDL, yeah, it's just Islam, and everyone else, if they've got two legs and no feathers and they call themselves English, they're English. No, they are not. We're English. English is a matter of blood, as well as birth, as well as the flag. And we're particularly second-class citizens vis-à-vis the Muslim bloc in this country because they're big and they're noisy and they vote, and therefore politicians, the political elite, are frightened of them. But we're also second-class citizens against other people as well. Can you imagine if the police had treated the family and campaigners of Stephen Lawrence in that way? There would have been hell. Every single one of those cops, had they been pushing members of the Stephen Lawrence campaign, had they pushed Doreen Lawrence off the street like they were pushing Karen Downes off the street, they'd all lose their jobs. And that's... Oh yeah, and Doreen Lawrence, bear in mind, you know, Charlene's mum and grandma, they get notices from the police warning them that if they keep campaigning they'll get arrested. Doreen Lawrence now sits in the House of Lords on a big fat salary as the peer of the realm. Exactly. That is not justice. And that is not about Islam. That's about the fact that if you're British, if you're English, if you're white in this country, you are a second-class citizen. Say the police, say the media. We don't say so. That's what they say. We say no. Because we're British, because we're English, we're the indigenous people of this country, we're the Aborigines, we're the natives, we have all the special rights, this is our country, and if we want someone else to come and live here as our guests, then that's by our say-so, but we are the ones who have the absolute right to keep this country for our children, our grandchildren, ever and a day. Our second-class status, which we are fighting against, is shown classically in the Stephen Lawrence case and the Charlene Downes case. In Stephen Lawrence's case, after a campaign, a retrial. The Charlene Downes case, no retrial. In my own case, for speaking out in 2004 about the Muslim grooming scandal, in my own case, the minute the first trial was over, the minute the jury had said not guilty, the prosecution barrister was on his feet saying to the judge, we're going for a retrial. He didn't even have to phone the bosses. Immediately. Didn't even have to ask how the jury was split. Immediately a retrial. A retrial for the killers, alleged killers of Stephen Lawrence. Nothing. Absolute silence in the case of the alleged killers of Charlene Downes, despite the fact being 99%, the police supposedly being 99% certain of what had happened and so on. And now apparently they're completely changing their mind. Like I said before, either the police were telling the truth and they were right when they said, look, we know who's done it, we're not looking for anybody else. Or if it's now different, well then they cocked up on a monumental scale. Either way, we demand a public inquiry as to what the hell went on in the police handling of that case. Now, as you know, this is a long campaign. It's a long, long campaign. It's scarcely begun yet. This is going to go on for years because you're dealing with a white working class victim. The media, the police, the powers that be really don't want to know. If we let up on this, they'll simply shove it under the carpet yet again. So thanks for coming today and being part of the campaign. But understand, this campaign is going to go on for a long, long time. Just as the campaign to get our country back is going to go on for a long, long time. But while we live and while we breathe, we will keep on fighting for justice for Charlene Downes and for control of our own country, because we're entitled to it. Now, one of the speakers you're going to hear from later on is Tony Bamber. Now, he got involved in this cause primarily because of personal family experience of the appalling tragedy, the evil that heroin brings to this country. And heroin's the other side of the grooming scandal, you know. From the same community that brought us the grooming scandal, the war against our young girls. Heroin is the flip side of that, the war particularly against our young men, but of course girls as well. Heroin and grooming are tied together like that. And that's the thing the media won't tell us. It's the thing the police are desperately trying to hide. And Tony was prosecuted for campaigning to expose the links between heroin and the Islamist gangs in this country. Again, like Charlene's mum and Charlene's grandma being pushed around by the police. Tony's prosecuted for trying to warn people about the heroin menace and explaining where the heroin menace comes from. That's again an example of the shocking dual standards. If anyone was campaigning against heroin from any immigrant community, they'd be held up as a hero. Yeah? But when an Englishman does it, because it's hit his own family, no, he's a racist Nazi bigot who wants to gas Jews, all the rest of the nonsense, and he's dragged through the courts. What a disgrace. But one of the things I know that Tony's going to be telling you about, but I want to mention it, is that he's been approached by one of the jurors from that trial, who's gone to the police and said, as a juror, look, I've got a duty to report a crime, and that jury was tampered with. That jury was threatened. That jury was intimidated. Members of that jury were bribed. Members of that jury were associated with the defendants. That alone is ample, huge reason to say whatever that jury decided, there should now be another retrial on exactly the same evidence against the two suspects. That should go ahead. But That's what's being pushed under the carpet, because the police, who are pretending when they talk to the media to be fair and open and honest about this, are they? When they're ignoring, apart from anything else, they're ignoring a juror who's gone to say there was crimes committed, the jury was nobbled, that jury was not fair. The police have got a duty to investigate that, and they're simply blanking him, which shows what we're up against. This, in the end, it's not a Muslim problem, it's not a black problem, it's the problem of our own criminal bloody elite. It's our masters, it's the people in political powerful places, it's the people who run the police, not the ordinary rank and file Bobby, it's the one who decides which ones get promoted. It's the whole ruling class of this country. They are the problem, before the immigrants, before the Muslims. It's our own traitors that we need to deal with, and deal with properly and for good. And the first step to getting us to a position when we can do that is to keep this campaign going. Because I tell you, out there's millions of people, literally millions of people, who are absolutely sick and tired of watching this country be shoved down the toilet, who are desperate to see leadership and chance and just have hope that something can be done to save this country before it's too late. And they look to us. They look to the British National Party. They look to the people who were standing up with the EDL when it was worthwhile, before Tommy betrayed it. And he betrayed it very early on, remember that, when he sold it to the Zionists. It's a long, long time before what recently has happened. But even as the EDL was with its faults under Robinson, at least people were looking to it and thinking, thank God there's some young, white, working class people standing up and fighting and saying, we refuse to roll over. We refuse to let these people spit on the poppy and burn the poppy and spit on our troops. The people of Britain have looked with amazement and respect not just the British National Party, the EDL, the infidels, all these different groups, because it's a sign of something new happening. It's a sign that the British people are no longer content to sit and moan about it. They're no longer going to be frightened and scared. The British people are starting to get up and struggle and fight and campaign and complain and want to change. And we need to win just one or two of these campaigns to open the floodgates. When people say, yup, we don't have to say, why don't they do something? We can do something. That's what you've done today by being here. Many of the faces I know, one way or another, you've been involved in this campaign for a long, long time. Like I said, it's going to go on for a long, long time further yet. We are going to go on until we win. Justice for Charlene Downes, freedom for Britain and the British people. Thank you very much. Cheers.